For 3 years of rabbinical school, I helped run a program each summer called Panim Summer Jam. Jam for Judaism, activism, and mitzvahs. Jam. Meant to appeal to the kids. A month-long experience for Jewish teenagers in DC. Kids came from all across the country and from a great diversity of Jewish backgrounds. Several days a week, they did service work at a preschool for vulnerable children, at a refugee resettlement agency, on a cleanup project along the polluted Anacostia River. They took classes about Jewish ethics and debated big issues with arguments rooted in Talmudic texts. They went on lobby visits, met with leaders, and explored DC. As we crisscrossed the district, we were constantly herding groups of teens on and off the wonderful and sparkling clean DC metro system. It actually is. If you haven't been on, it's like the opposite of New York. It's the only thing in DC which is clean. When we reached a destination, the kids in charge for that day would sing out to the whole train, "Jammers off the metro!" And all the kids were supposed to echo it back, to the great annoyance of the very important people rushing off to run the country. After assembling on the platform, we do a quick count and make sure no one was daydreaming their way to Virginia or Maryland before continuing on our way. It's actually a lot easier back then. There were no smartphones, so they talked to each other and even to us. It's amazing. One summer, I had a particularly frustrating staff person. An accomplished and bright woman in her 30s, she was startlingly inept when it came to recognizing the difference between her and her teenage participants. Once, after a long day of zigzagging from project to program and back again, she approached me and said, "Adam, I notice you're always counting the kids." "Yes," I said, wondering very much where this was going. "But I notice," she continued, "I notice you never count me. You know, I could get lost too." Oh dear. I think Cantor Amy would say, "Bless her heart." I've used this poor woman as a punchline for a decade and a half. But since this is Yom Kippur Eve, I think it's time for a little bit of public tshuva. Because the truth is, we're all in danger of getting lost. Even us grown-ups, if we don't have someone watching out for us, if we don't watch out for each other. Over the years, there have been a few sermons that have truly stayed with me for a long, long time. One was given by Rabbi Noah Kushner, the remarkable founder of a beautiful community in San Francisco called The Kitchen. As an aside, she called it The Kitchen because that's where the family hangs out. Guests sit in the living room or at the dining room table, but family, mishpacha, we're in the kitchen. And she wanted a community that was animated by that particular kitchen magic. I think we have a lot of that feeling at CBI here. Her sermon was on Parshat Matot Maseh, the final readings from the book of Bamidbar, known in English as the book of Numbers, but much more evocatively in Hebrew as the book of being in the wilderness. In this Torah portion, Moses devotes 45 verses to the 42 places in our desert journey where the Israelites stopped to camp. And they set out from Hatzerot and camped at Ritma. And they set out from Ritma and camped at Rimon Perez. And they set out from Rimon Perez and camped at Libnah, and on and on and on. What are we to make of this dry, seemingly endless list of archaic place names? Rabbi Kushner points us to a passage in Maimonides' Guide for the Perplexed, which states that the reason the Torah enumerated all these way stations and camping spots was to emphasize that while we zigzagged, we were never lost. We were going on a purposeful journey. Lord knows it was not the shortest or most efficient way of getting there. It was beyond the circuitous route. But we weren't just blundering about. We weren't lost. We were on our way somewhere, animated by a promise and with trust in God's help that we would eventually, however long it took, get where we needed to go. Well, it's very nice to know that our ancestors weren't lost, just zigzagging. I suspect we've all had moments when we know what it feels like to be Bamidbar, adrift in the wilderness. The structures and edifices of our lives that we spend so much time creating, at some point or another, it becomes clear that they're all built on sand. A strong wave comes and washes away all that we have carefully constructed. A job comes to an end. A relationship falls apart. A loved one gets sick, or we do. We walk into the valley of the shadow of death, and despite our best and deepest hopes, we don't sense the presence of a loving shepherd guiding us through. We just feel lost and scared and deeply unsure of our footing. We stumble in the dark. Before COVID, Ann and I used to host these giant Passover Seders, inviting 40 or 50 or close to 60 friends and students to come and join us. We'd set a theme and give homework, asking participants to come ready with an object that helps them tell a story. One year was the story of your family's ancestral immigration. Another year was the object you would take with you if you needed to leave it all behind. For one of our last big Seders, we asked people to bring an item that evoked a time when they felt in the wilderness. Someone brought their college ID. Someone brought a picture of their mom, who had been gone for many years. Someone brought an empty wallet. Someone brought an empty pill bottle. What would you have brought? When have you felt so very lost? And what helped you get found? What if we could pull back and see the times when we felt ourselves to truly be wandering, directionless and scared, with gentler eyes, with eyes of compassion and hard-won wisdom, to say, as Maimonides did, that while it appeared we were lost, we were always on a journey from here to there. That the places that we stopped, whether for years or for days, were part of what it took for us ultimately to find our way. Even when we doubled back on ourselves, made the same mistake again and again, relapsed, gave up hope, that it all mattered and nothing was wasted, because it all forms the story of our lives. That, as the rabbis like to pun, Hamidbar Midaber, the wilderness, it speaks to us. It's our teacher, too. Those times help us to arrive on our schedule and no one else's, to a place where we can finally find ourselves at last. In the beginning, Genesis teaches all was tohu vavohu, the wild, unformed, watery chaos, the darkness on the face of the deep. When our tradition wants to evoke that feeling of chaos for us, it calls upon the image of the primeval waters, churning and roiling, crashing and breaking, full of monstrous creatures, the Leviathan, untamed, unknowable. We're drawn to the waters. It's so beautiful, but we also sense their overwhelming and terrible power. As the prayer of the old Breton fisherman went, "Dear God, your sea is so great, and my boat so small." We conclude Kabbalat Shabbat each week with Psalm 93. It's often almost a throwaway piece of the service, coming after the much better known Psalm 92, the Psalm for Shabbat, Tov lehodot l'Adonai l'zamer l'shimcha elyon. Yet its final lines are among my favorite in all of our liturgy. Nasu naharot Adonai, nasu naharot kolam, nasu naharot dochyam. The rivers rise up, Adonai. The rivers raise their roar. The rivers raise up their waves. Mikolod mayim rabim adirim mishbarei yam adir b'marom Adonai. Above the roar of the vast sea, above even the crashing breakers of the ocean, Adonai stands firm. Adonai stands firm above it all. What is the purpose of religion in our lives if it's not to affirm that somewhere above the chaos, beneath the chaos, maybe even within the chaos, there's always a solid place? A place where the ground is firm, where we can hold on, where we can be at home. To help us become, in the words of the first psalm, an eitz shatul al palgei mayim, a tree planted by running waters. Place to find respite from our wanderings, to place deep roots that will not be swept away, to hold firm even in a time of so many storms. Throughout my first year as CBI's rabbi, I've been trying to capture and articulate the purpose of our community. Why are we here? Why do we do what we do? What, as my teacher, Rabbi Brad Hirschfeld, says, what is the real job that we hire a synagogue for in our lives? And I've come to believe, 15 months in, that we need spiritual communities like this one so we don't get lost. So that we have a place, as my old staff member in DC once longed for, where we are always included in the count. Where if we were to fall, someone would reach out and catch us. Where if we were to disappear, someone would notice and come looking. Where we can be reminded that we matter, that our lives matter, that our hopes and our pains and our dreams and our struggles are ours, but they're also a reflection of something universal, something timeless, something real. There was an enormously popular show on television that probably you remember about a bar where everyone knows your name. It was popular not just because of the incredible confluence of talent that made the show Cheers, but because it tapped into such a deep human longing, a place to belong, a place where everyone knows your name. The truth is, there are very few places left in our fragmented, alienated, corporatized society. At Starbucks, not only do they not know your name, they can't pronounce it on your cup. The gym is not home. A mall is not home. Costco actually is a place of meeting for many people. But it's not a home. Schools come and go as kids grow up. Jobs come and go in a very different way than they did for our parents and grandparents. What is a place where you can be at home through every stage of life, through every moment, good and bad, except for spiritual community? Spiritual community. Exactly what we're building here. While CBI is always busy, on Shabbat, this place comes to life, full of music and conversation, learning and schmoozing in equal measure, with kids running through the courtyards and occasionally, God bless them, on the bima, the sharing of sweet remembrances of loved ones past and the sharing of moments of great celebration, babies named and anniversaries celebrated, children taking their first official steps on the journey to become adults, with hugs and handshakes and clusters of friends and generations of family, with the feeling of being really seen and at home. You know, if you only come for these holidays, I want to warmly invite you to make this the year that you come and check out what Shabbat feels like here. It's really beautiful. And it's better with you. No guilt. Maybe just a little. It's the good Jewish kind. But more than being a joyful thing to get together each week, it serves a deeper and far more important purpose. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel described the Sabbath as an island of stillness, as a safe harbor where we can rest and regain perspective. But Heschel never conceived of a Sabbath as a day of solitude. He spoke instead of a day in which we reconnect with each other, with family, with friends, with spirituality, with community. 6 days a week we may feel we're going through the motions, racing to keep some semblance of control of our inboxes, our carpool schedule, our finances, our health, our sanity. But on the seventh day, we gather right here in this room, and we remind ourselves that we are rooted in an ancient bedrock, that we do not travel alone. It's a campsite. It's a way station. It's the knowledge that we zigzag through our personal wilderness, but we are not lost. That's what comes of true community. That's the vision, the higher calling for this institution. On this day of repentance, though, it's important for me to say in front of our community that we don't always get it right. That there are still people, and probably people sitting in this room, who walk in and out of this place and do not yet feel seen and known and cared for. That there have been people who have stopped showing up, and it took us all too long to notice. That even in such a warm community, even in such a loving place, people can fall through the cracks. For all of that, we need to keep doing better. I, as this community's rabbi, I need to keep doing better. We have a lot of work to do to create the kind of village that fully lives up to its promise and its purpose. But I can think of no more necessary and important labor of love. And for all the ways in which we can still do better, I want to tell you how proud I am of the many ways that this incredible community keeps people from getting lost. I'm proud that we have a dedicated refrigerator overflowing with food for anyone who might need to take without question or shame. How extraordinary. I'm proud that before Rosh Hashanah, a small army of volunteers went out entirely without my knowledge, armed with home-baked round challahs and honey cakes to deliver to our elders, to our sick, to our grieving. I'm proud that when tragedy struck again and again and again this year, sometimes more than once to the same family, that there never seemed to be enough chairs at a Shiva house. And that people of this community kept showing up again and again and again with love. I'm proud that when somebody walks through these doors, more often than not, they leave with a friend who will save them a seat for the following week, and not infrequently, a Torah reading assignment from Michael Baer. If you're able to visit without that, that's the trick. I'm proud that our warmth has become such a beacon that more than 80 families have joined us in the last 15 months. In a time in which our movement is shrinking, in which synagogues are shrinking, we're approaching the century mark of new families in less than a year and a half. That's because of the energy in this room. That's because of the way we show up for each other. I'm proud of you. And I'm proud of us. I'm proud of us for dedicating ourselves to ensuring that this is a place of inclusion and welcome and love. where people can be at home. A final note. The Hasidic master Rabbi Chaim of Tzantz used to tell the following story. Once there was a man who went for a walk in the forest and lost his way. He wandered through the thick woods many hours, unable to find a path out. Finally, he came across another human being, and his heart was filled with joy, thinking to himself, I will certainly now find a way out of the forest. When they neared each other, he called out, Brother, I'm so grateful to have found you. I'm lost and I've been wandering for hours. Can you please show me the way? Said the other back to him, I'm sorry, I don't know the way out either. I too have been wandering a very long time. And the first man burst into tears. He said, when I saw you, I felt sure I was saved, that you would show me the way, and now I can see there's no hope. But the second smiled gently and replied, it's true, I can't show you the way out. But still, I can show you something. Now we both know the ways that don't lead out of the forest. And better yet, we can go searching together. There is not a human being who doesn't know what it feels like to be lost. And since you've been there, and I have too, let's take each other's hands. Let's continue to build a place where we can all get ourselves found. Together we might zigzag, but I know we'll find our way toward belonging, toward rootedness, toward home, step by blessed step. Gemar Chatima Tova.